Hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to welcome you all to this brand new season of the Glass Academy Webinars 2026 in association with Ethos Empowers. This year, our overarching theme is Envisioning India at 2047, building the next century of progress, under which we will be exploring interesting topics relevant to the ACED industry and its stakeholders. We're excited to have all of you here as we continue to explore meaningful conversations at the intersection of architecture, materials, products, and human experience. Today's session, titled Psychology of Space: How Glass Influences Perception, Behavior, and Experience, invites us to go beyond aesthetics and function and instead look at how spaces actively influence the way we feel, behave, and interact in our everyday lives. Within this larger idea of spatial psychology, glass plays a very unique role. It is not just a material of transparency, but a medium that directly affects perception and behavior. It can open up or frame views, create connection or separation, and influence how light, privacy, and movement are experienced within a space. In many ways, glass becomes the lens through which we experience architecture itself. To help us unpack these ideas further, we are delighted to welcome architect Anuj Khandelwal, a graduate of the renowned SPA Delhi and a partner at Aris Atelier, Delhi, where he plays a key role in transforming how spaces are conceived and experienced. With over 12 years of professional experience, architect Anuj has consistently placed user needs, behaviors, and everyday habits at the center of his design approach. His work reflects a deep understanding of how people interact with space and how design can quietly shape comfort, movement, and emotion. Beyond practice, he has also been actively involved in academia for over 8 years, mentoring and guiding young architects across multiple architecture schools, sharing his approach to designing with sensitivity and intent. We are truly delighted to have you with us today, Architect Anuj.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca.
So let's get started. So, to start us off, Mr. Anuj, what drew you to architecture in the first place? And at what point did it evolve from just designing spaces to thinking about how people actually experience them?
So, growing up in the era where engineering was the hero course to do after school, my dad was building a building that time. He was constructing a building, and I was very actively a part of it back when I was in school. And I think it was class 8 when this was happening. And I realized that there is so much to do in this. How can a course like architecture be so underrated in India? And that is when I had decided, yes, I want to pursue architecture and build, make buildings, design buildings, and make lives better. So once I started off after my college, once I started off with my practice, so I started doing a lot of tiny homes out of passion. So the idea was to look at the smallest possible space and give out the maximum. So we did a lot of anthropometrical studies when we were designing these homes. So how a human body moves, how what kind of space it needs, and what are the different postures that we have in our everyday life, in our day-to-day activities, and moving from what a general book would say, but considering an Indian context, कि खाना लोग साथ में डाइनिंग टेबल पे बैठ के खा रहे हैं या जमीन पे चटाई बिछा के खा रहे हैं और room is not only for sleeping, they might want to do yoga there, or they might simply pull out a carom board and play. So all these things collectively joined together as a part of my research on various spaces and usages of different spaces, and how a space can be so versatile that it can be used in more than five different functions. So with all those studies, and I was working on these kinds of houses for I think over 6 or 7 years continuously. I did a lot of them, and I did made an impact there when a lot of houses in certain part of NCR were done in this way, where young professionals coming from all over India to work in NCR would require a private space but not a huge apartment for themselves. We did a lot of tiny rooms, tiny houses there, which were ranging up to 20 to 25 or 30 square meters in size, which had a well furnished kitchen, bedroom, a small recreational area, washroom, a complete unit for them, for a single person to live in.
That's great. So, what a wonderful journey. I'm excited for what's in store for our session today. So, Mr. Anuj, when you begin designing a space, what is the first thing that you try to understand about its users beyond just function?
Uh, their habits, the habit of a user. So, how they like to do their little things or everyday things in life, how their daily routine is, and eventually they only define the space. Every person is different, every person has a different habit. So, how can a space be standardized? So, even when I go to a space and I see that, हाँ, टेबल पे बहुत सारा सामान रखा हुआ है इनकी डाइनिंग टेबल पे, I know for a fact that yes, they need a console at the entrance which can clear up that mess for them. Or in a very similar manner, when I go to somebody's office and I see a huge pile of papers on their desk, I know how their office functions, what their requirements are, and what they actually need. So, whether a person is left handed or right handed, how tall they are, a general in family, how tall the entire family is, or are they short heighted, or are they of a different body size, or they have a different family routine or family culture. So that governs a lot of things. So there was a family that I met when I was doing their house. So they had a very simple routine of having ice cream every night together at home while playing cards. So that was a celebratory moment for them through the day. कि दिन भर सबका grind था, they were doing different things, they were struggling through the day, but evening everyone was home together, chilling over a scoop of ice cream with cards. What better can it be? So a tiny nook in the house took care of that moment for them, and it became the most happening part of the house for them eventually. So yeah, when you start understanding the user, designing is a piece of cake.
Yes, very true, very true. So, do you think that designers experience spaces differently than regular users, especially in what they instinctively notice when they first enter a space?
Oh, yes, big time. Big time. So when a regular user enters a space, they are in awe of the beauty or the scale of the space or how nicely something has been done or the colors or the furniture or the lights. Unfortunately, for a designer, the first thing we see are the flaws. What we only see what's wrong with the space. Or when we go to a deeper aspect of it, it's more about what the user or what the designer might have been thinking while designing it. What was the idea behind it? What kind of brief would he have gotten from the user when he started with the design of that space? So, in our head, it's an entire movie that is happening, which is the journey of the design process. And at the end, what's wrong with this space? Because yes, we are used to that perfection that everything should be not only picture perfect, but perfect for the user. So if I go to a place and I see that a switchboard is slightly tilted, it gives me hiccups ki yaar nahi, ye nahi hona chahiye. Why is it happening this way? But yes, we understand that nothing is perfect. And if a sculptor starts perfecting the sculpture, it will be nothing at the end. There are imperfections. We need to learn to live with them. So, yeah, that is how differently we perceive every space.
Yes, yes, very true. Speaking of perceiving and experiencing, if you had to decide between a space feeling open or contained, what factors guide that decision of yours, and how does that choice ultimately influence the way that people or users take that space?
So, I have something that I call the elevator effect. So, you enter a building, you step into the elevator. What do you see around you? Glass walls or steel walls? Either of the two.
Yeah.
Glass walls give you a sense of openness, comfort, a connect. But what do the steel walls do? A confinement. So a lot of time people feel claustrophobic when they are in regular elevators, but when they're in glass elevators, they're a lot more comfortable. So it's exactly the same thing altogether. Having natural light in the space, having visual connects with your surroundings, knowing what's happening around makes you feel a lot more comfortable. So at the end of the day, it completely depends on the user and his mindset or his psyche, his comfort level with the space. Whether they want a small, closed, confined space where they feel cozy and comfortable, or whether they like to be connected to all around, whether they like that sense of awareness of what's happening around them. So there are people who want spaces where they can simply cut their minds off from everything. So,
Yeah.
and there are people who get anxious when they don't know what's happening around them. So again, for the user, it will completely depend on what kind of mindset they work with, what kind of sense of space they like. But yeah, elevator is like the perfect space to decide that or know that about a person. At times we don't know it about ourselves because in humans there is a tendency to not explore or analyze ourselves a lot. Seldom people don't know what they really like, what they really want. But yeah, small things like these do give you an answer. And we need, as designers, need to take cues from things they do, things they say. That does matter a lot.
True, sir, very true. I like the elevator effect example that creates such a perfect picture for designers. Mr. Anuj, can you recall a moment in a project where introducing glass had completely changed the way space was perceived or experienced?
I think so. Back in about 2018, almost 8 years ago, I was doing a small office in Delhi. So the client wanted a renovation, a complete renovation for the space. But he was very, very adamant on retaining the Vastu concepts of the space. So he wasn't ready to relocate a single chair in that space. So practically there was nothing much to do, but it was only about the cosmetic changes that could have been done in that space. So now cosmetic changes are very simple to do. But again, I still sat down with him and I asked him, why do you want to renovate? If your Vastu works perfectly fine, everything is in place, everything that you already have is of a decent quality and not in a very dilapidated state. Why do you want to renovate? So then his concerns started coming forward that the way I'm sitting in this office, I don't know what's happening in my office. I don't want to put in CCTV cameras all over so that I can monitor my entire team because I don't want to monitor them 24/7. I don't want to get into micromanagement of the work. So I understood that his concerns were the visual blocks in the space and the way he was feeling so heavy with the space. So we completely transformed that space in a way there where we took all the walls away. Apart from the pantry and washroom, there were no more walls in the entire space. And there were glass walls. There were cabinets abutting the glass walls, right next to the glass walls, without a back, so that yes, you could display your trophies on those cabinets, on those shelves, but not block it completely. So there were smaller visual connects. We had certain lower systems in space where not everything was through and through visible. Everyone had a sense of privacy along with sense of visual connect, and which was completely controllable at the end of the day. So it completely transformed the space. There was not a single electrical point that we moved there. No major changes, just with the kind of partitions we had. It worked well for us. And so every time I do a office and we hand over the site to the client, I give them a call from between 9 to 12 months and I ask them, how is your team? How are they dealing with the space? Are they happy about it? And to my realization, his team size grew by four. It was a small office, they were working with six people. Now they had 10 and in the same space, which was cramped earlier, still feels a lot open to them.
That's a really great example, sir. And it talks so much about how the importance of understanding how even the users respond to the change over time.
That's very
So,
important. I always say feedback
yeah,
is the breakfast for champions. If you want to do something good, you need a good feedback. Whether how harsh or how sweet it is, you need it.
true, true. Yes, so very true. So, moving on to the next question. So, since glass allows light to constantly shift through a space as the day goes by, how do you design for something that is always evolving?
So the answer lies in the beauty of ever-changing solar angles and how mood of a space changes with the changing light through the day and through the year. So if you realize this one simple fact that sun angle is different throughout the year at every hour. You will not find the sun angle to be the same at any 2 points of the day or any 2 days at the same time or different times as well. It keeps on changing. So when you have glass in different directions of a space, so maybe you have a piece of window, a piece of glass and opening onto the north and onto the east or onto the west or onto the south as well. You see how dramatically the space changes, the mood of the space changes altogether when that happens. And adding elements of color in the glass in those spaces makes a blast of energy and dynamism in that space. So when we do a lot of educational spaces, when we do schools, we do add up colorful glass as light shades in a lot of different spaces. So when the morning the sun is bright and yellow, the spaces are well lit and very uniformly lit. And by the time the day is about to end, the sun is more on the reddish tone. So it's warmer and the spaces look a lot more dramatic. So since the solar angle is very vertical during the daytime and during the mornings and evenings, it's very slanted. It's on a greater slope. So the way you experience how deep the sunlight penetrates through the building and create effects with the elements on the glass gives you a very dramatic picture inside the building. It's like an art happening inside, and that's a constantly moving art.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. When you look into the light conditions, the reflections and transparency, the experience of a space definitely changes from morning to evening throughout the day. So,
That is always there.
Mr. Anuj,
Yeah.
some spaces sometimes feel instantly calming, while sometimes other spaces feel slightly tense without even us knowing why. How do you relate to that feeling back to transparency or how that enclosure was handled?
It's majorly about the balance in the space. So if you enter a study room and you see a study table and there's a window right next to it, how do you feel about it? You see the light falling onto the study table, there's natural light where you're reading or writing, and it feels good. And at times you enter the study room and you find that study table aligned to a wall. There is a pin-up board on the wall, some bookshelf on top of it. What you feel is that there is a lot more focus happening here, right? So to each user, it's a different perception. What might tense you might be very soothing for someone. So we are talking about an introvert, or are we talking about an extrovert person, or are we talking about a very simple person, or are we talking about a person who lives in a very high energy? It's about how your internal energy is like. So that will completely change. I have never seen people telling me the same things about a study. Why did I take this example up? So when I talk to my clients, how and where do you like your study? And when I talk about a window in the room, so some people say it should face the window. Some people want it behind them. Some people want it next to a window but not facing the window. Because when I talk to a creative person in a creative industry, maybe a designer, maybe a writer, an author, they want to face the window because looking out gives them that sense of inspiration that breaks the monotony of writing or creating for them. But when I talk to a student of engineering or law or medical who goes through a lot of reading, they want to be focused because they have a lot of work to do in a very limited amount of time. So they're not creators, they're learners and applicators. Whereas creators have a very different set of requirements altogether. Similarly, a lot of people like a small window in their bedroom which allows some natural light to come in, but some of them just like a huge wall to be glass. They want to look outside as soon as they wake up. I am that kind of a person who likes the first light of the day to hit my room. I would never put on a curtain when I go to bed. But I know people who simply just black out their bedroom windows, get the wall clock out of the room because they don't want to even know what time of the day it is when they wake up. So it's again completely on striking that balance depending on what the user really likes.
True, true, sir. Very
And
true,
again,
especially.
like I said in the beginning, the essence of it comes from understanding the person, understanding the user, what their routine is like, what their preferences are like.
Correct, about creating the balance about what they want and creating a comfort for them in that space. Very true. Like you've mentioned, Mr. Anuj, light can definitely completely transform a space. Can you share any instance where that controlling light became a critical part and how glass helped you achieve that?
Uh, so we were designing a school, we were working on the school. It was an existing school, we were expanding it, and there were corridor running on the east and west side of the room, in the east-west direction of the school. But they had a constant problem that whenever there are students moving in the corridor during the lunch breaks or the morning hours or the afternoon hours, there would be a lot of chaos. They're moving in all directions. So, what do we really do? How do we handle that chaos by means of design? It's more of a management and a discipline situation, what most people would think. So, when I looked at the corridors, there were huge windows on both the ends. What I did was I simply reduced the size of the window, and on either ends, one window was onto the left side of the corridor. On the other end, it was again on the left of that side. So practically, they were diagonally opposite to each other. Humans have tendencies to walk towards a source of light, source of opening. Students automatically fell into an idea of moving in the center of the window line, and they were automatically moving in the center of the window. So practically on the sides of the corridor now. And there were practically no issues after that. They could never understand what happened. And I was very happy they had the solution. So there was no chaos anymore, and it was a very harmonious movement that was happening. I went there at times and experienced how the students moved during the lunch break. They would simply get out of their class and start moving towards the window. So I think that solved the problem for them, and or maybe it was near something else that I don't know about. But yeah, that was the idea, that was the intent, that was the result that I saw. If there were other factors, maybe, but yeah, I feel it happened because of this.
Of course, that's a wonderful instance about how even a tiny change in design can,
It's
lead to
so we
behavior.
learn a lot of design principles. That is what I've always taught my students also, that there are certain design principles, and whenever you're stuck, just go back to any one of them. When you don't find answers, these principles have the answer. These are the basics of design. So it was a simple thing that a small window is a point of focus. Your eyes tend to go to something that is focused upon, that is emphasized upon. So if you reduce the focus, make it a single point, it's easy to focus and move there. That was the entire idea behind this.
True, true, sir. So you've had so much experience, sir, and it's a joy listening to everything. Uh, could you tell us what happens again in your experience to user interaction when solid boundaries are replaced with glass?
So when we do offices, there are multiple cubicles happening. You're looking at your machine and working like a factory unit. But just imagine an office where you get to just look onto the left or the right and you're just passing a smile to someone, or someone is already passing a smile to you. Think of a workspace in that manner. So a lot depends on the psychology of a human on when they go to a workspace and how the quality of space impacts their mind, their work efficiency, and their physical health as well. I have a concept when I do office spaces that you do not wrap a open space around working spaces, but you wrap around working spaces around the open spaces. Sorry, I said the other way around. You wrap open spaces around the workspaces. So at every point, if I'm in a room, one, there are no physical visual partitions. I can see my neighbors. I know who people around me are. So it's very comfortable to share a cup of coffee, just have a 2 minute conversation and take that small break from work when you're in a stretched timeline. And when you have open spaces around, when you can simply look at any one or two direction and you see greens outside, you see a small balcony with plants, or you simply get to see the next building, you don't feel very uncomfortable the way you feel when you look at a solid wall with maybe just a piece of art on it. But that's constant, that's not even changing. But when you look outside the window, it's something new every time. The leaves are green, the leaves are brown, the seasons change, the color of the sky changes. Maybe the bird sitting outside will change. But there's something break that monotony of work every time. And when there is a monotony in work, people tend to work in a more happier mood, a very happier mind state of mind. The work production is better, the efficiency is better. And when the mind is healthy, physically you feel healthier. You tend to work more towards your body. So it does bring in a major, major change there.
Yes, sir. It that was a very insightful answer. You have mentioned, like you said, about the instance in the school where your design decision had made students move, but naturally through towards light in that space. Could you maybe walk us through another movement where the positioning of glass in your project had influenced how people naturally moved through a space?
So a lot of places. So if you go to any hotel, uh, so whenever we do hotels and we do corridors, we tend to use glass in a way where if the end of the corridor cannot accommodate a window because you're working with a lot of high efficiency spaces, we tend to tilt the mirrors at those ends of the corridor in a way where light from another direction can come in, hit the mirror, and spread it into the corridor. And again, it's very easy and perceptible for people to move in that direction. Another aspect of it is so we were doing a building for the differently abled. It was a skill training center for differently abled, and it was a very unique building. It's one of its kind, universally accessible building in India, where we proudly say that a person can move around. A person with any kind of deformity, disability can move around the building without any assistance. So whether I'm talking about visual impairment, whether I'm talking about physical impairment, they can comfortably move around the building. They know where they are at all given times. And the use of glass has been very helpful there. So, a lot of times when people are suffering from different psychological conditions, so having a space which gives you a lot more predictable design for movement, where you enter in and you don't have to think where I need to go, but design guides you. It happens only by means of visual connects. By seeing you know where you need to go, by seeing you know where you are, is because you can relate to something else that you saw when you entered the space. And those kind of visual connects always help. So having a lot of glass partitions there, half frosted, half see-through, where a person could see ki, this is where I stepped into the building. I'm again in the center of the building, and now I know whether I need to go to the right or to the left because I can see what's on the other end of the building. So yeah, it helped us a lot in those kind of situations as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, Mr. Anuj, over time, do you think people start to experience glass differently in a space? How do you keep, how do you design to keep that experience from becoming engaging rather than repetitive?
So it's not something that we have to do there, honestly, as designers. A lot more of it goes into what is happening outside. Glass is just a wonderful material there which lets you see through and live through it. And ultimately, whatever is happening outside changes the experience inside. It's a very a symbiotic relationship of an unbuilt and a built space. Glass is a connection, a visual connection when you can't physically be connected, but you can at least be visually connected. So I say that it's not something that we need to do apart from putting up a glass in a very balanced format there to achieve those space qualities or characters.
Yes, so very true. Do you think there is a difference between a space that looks good in pictures and one that actually feels good to be in? And where do you think glass sits in that difference?
To be very honest, pictures are stories where you have controlled light, multiple light sources. They are meant to sell because, like we always say in a business industry, where facts tell, stories sell. Photos are stories, they're written, they could be fictitious, whereas reality can be a drama. And glass with natural light, oh my God, what kind of a drama it will create. Imagine strong, harsh light coming in to a very small patch of the room and just lighting up the space, brilliantly lighting up the space, or a huge glass piece onto the north side of a building where no direct light comes in, but the entire space is so uniformly lit because of the northern side of the building. So, from harsh south to very strong east and west, and very calm and soothing north, the amount of glass you use, whether you use a slit window, whether you use a tall window, whether you put up a bay window in a cold space to get light from all three sides. So, the kind of drama it creates, you can never experience that in a photo.
True, true. It is so important to reflect and understand the difference between the visual appeal of a face and the lived experience of that
It
space.
totally is. So, I am very bad with social media because I don't put up a lot of photos on social media because I'm always enjoying my travel. I forget to click. I forget to upload because I'm so lost in sp- that place, in the ambience, in the feel of any space, any city I go to, any town I go to. It's similar, and it's a very good space. When the light inside is good, you feel happy with that space. When you have a good visual connect, that you see light entering your ground floor room from the fourth floor directly through the multiple light wells that you have in that building, from the glasses you have all around, so that yes, you are comfortable in an air conditioned environment, but there's no lack of natural light in that space.
Mm.
You tend to forget taking photos and start enjoying it. So the difference between life on social media versus real life is exactly the same there.
Yeah, true. It's mostly the comfort in you experience in a place or a space that makes it memorable. So you click a photo because you feel that way in that space.
So back in college time, we always used to say the best parties are those where the photos never get clicked.
True.
It's true for
Very
every
true,
space.
sir. So, moving on to the next question, Mr. Anuj. So, for young architects and designers, what mindset shift would you suggest when it comes to using glass as a material that enhances human experience and transforms the way people feel within a space?
So this is something I always tell my students, I tell my interns, I tell the fresh graduates who join me that I know what you have experienced in your college life or even your internship, the kind of exposure you have is still very limited. The kind of exposure I have is also very limited. I learn something new every day, so do you. So we do a lot of discussions over materials, different materiality, how there are more correct answers to one problem than one. There's not always only one correct answer, there are multiple correct answers always. So similarly, when we talk about material like glass, for them at that point of time, it's something they put up in a window, something they might put up in a washroom as partition or an office as a partition. But the kind of variety, the versatility of this material is amazing. How a glass sandwiching fabric in it changes the complete look and feel of the space. Or different processes on a glass, whether you flute it, whether you tint it, whether it's a stained glass, whether it's done more like a art piece rather than a partition, or a crackled glass, or simple glass cubes. And even when you look at how technologically advanced we get day by day, how photovoltaic glass windows are helping generate electricity by giving you a clear view and not putting up those ugly solar panels on the rooftop. There's so much glass can do. When you look at the sky bridges, people walking on glass bridges, it's more than just being a simple, brittle, fragile material. It's a lot more than that. So, idea is to open up their minds not to what a stereotypical material has been doing, but what all it can do, and look at the potential of it, not just the current applications of it or what the world has been doing. The idea is to think different from the rest of the world and create something new.
Yes, true. It's about approaching glass with a greater potential, like you said, and intention, and looking at the whole picture. So, so before we wrap up, we want to play a quick and fun round called Myth versus Reality. So, I'm going to share a few common statements about glass in design, and we'd love for you to tell us whether you think it is a myth or a reality, and of course, why you would think that. Okay, let's go. First point, glass always makes a space feel bigger.
It makes an indoor space feel bigger, but an outdoor space feel smaller.
Perfect. More transparency automatically means better design.
More transparency means better visual connects, lesser privacy. So, again, a balanced transparency is very important.
Okay, next statement. Glass compromises privacy.
Not if it is frosted or fluted or tinted.
Okay, next. Natural light always improves comfort in a space.
It always does, not only comfort but also the health of the users.
Okay, next point. Glass heavy spaces don't work well in hot climates.
They completely do. There are so many kinds of applications when you work with glasses. You use cavity glasses, you use tinted glasses, you have reflective glasses. It's just about smart application again.
And the last point. People feel more connected in spaces with more glass.
100% they do.
Well, thank you, Mr. Anuj, for that wonderful myth busting session and for an incredibly insightful conversation overall. And as we come to close of this insightful session, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to architect Anuj Khandelwal for taking us through such a thoughtful journey across his work. Each insight and experience that you shared today went beyond design narratives, offering us a clear understanding of how glass, when used with intention and responsibility, becomes a powerful response to contemporary architectural needs. Your approach, balancing aesthetics, performance, sustainability, and practical execution, is truly inspiring, especially for all the young architects and students who've joined with us today. And on behalf of Glass Academy and Ethos, thank you once again for your time and for sharing your expertise so generously. And to our audience, thank you for your active participation and engagement throughout the session. We hope you're leaving with fresh perspectives, new ideas, and a deeper appreciation of the many roles that glass plays in shaping the built environment. Stay tuned for our upcoming sessions as we continue to explore conversations around material intelligence and architectural innovation. Also, do follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn for more updates, insights, and upcoming announcements from Glass Academy and Ethos Empowers. See you all at the next webinar. Thank you.